Hey there, ghouls and ghosts. Welcome to Seven Scorpion Tarot. I am your host with the most, and I want to welcome you to today's reading. Today, I want to do a reading for Saturn retrograding through Pisces. Get a little more in depth into that. I think I've done a TikTok about that, but I wanted to dive a little bit further into the astrology, the mythology, and a little bit of art that is relevant to this. This is a planetary placement that is close to my heart because I have a 4 placement stellium in Capricorn, a 3 placement stellium in Pisces. So I've been kind of getting hit pretty hard by the celestial weather, to put it lightly. Uh, but Saturn is the disciplinarian of the zodiac, so very juxtaposed with Pisces being the free spirit that it is. And one of the things that came to mind with this placement for me was a meme that I saw a while back, that it was like, forget astrology. If you were a demigod, who would your divine parent be? And due to the aforementioned stelliums, Kronos is who I would pick as like who my divine parent would be. The other reasoning for that is, living with PTSD, I have a really unusual relationship with time and the perception of time. It's something that I work uh, with my therapist quite a bit on, like, when I get a case of the wens, dealing with things like, flashbacks and derealization and depersonalization and things like that. Pretty intense uh, symptoms to be contending with. But reframing those things as like an ancient curse kind of makes it a little bit more fantastical. And for some reason, the idea of a divine curse seems less threatening than actual post-traumatic stress disorder. But it's a coping mechanism that's worked for me. It's worked really well. Like, oh, here we go again. It's the ancient curse. And at least it can give me a little bit of levity, because that's one of the tenets of the support group I attend. It's we embrace humor as healthy. And I think that's a really important part with being being able to cope with these things. Being silly is so underrated and something that needs to be nourished in my view. Let's get into the mythology a little bit, because with Kronos and Poseidon, so Saturn and Neptune, those are the like Greek to Roman conversions. Kronos was he was the son of two of the primordial gods, Gaia and Uranus. And Uranus is the god of the sky, the embodiment of the sky. The primordial deities are a bit different than the Olympians in the Greek pantheon, but we're all familiar with the personification of the earth, the name Gaia, uh, and there's quite a bit of mythology involved with both Poseidon and Uranus, as Kronos castrated Uranus with a scythe, which led to the birth of Aphrodite, which is something that we've talked about in previous readings. So I would encourage you to check those out. I think Venus is in Sagittarius right now. So maybe there's also some uh, importance in that placement for you. I'm also a Venus in Pisces, in addition to being a Sun in Pisces. And in regards to Poseidon, so there was a prophecy that Gaia and Uranus had told Kronos about, that eventually a child would be born that would overthrow him. So as he fathered various deities like Hades, Poseidon, Demeter, he consumed them all up until Zeus. Zeus was saved because he was hidden by Rhea. How did she do that? I think she disguised him as a boulder, and there was some mythical creatures or someone at her bidding, a group of someone's, that they all clapped so loudly when Zeus was born, it covered his cries so that Kronos wouldn't be able to find him and consume him. And then eventually, Zeus got older and overthrew Kronos, fulfilling the prophecy, and then imprisoned Kronos in Tartarus, the prison where gods and titans and so on and so forth imprisoned for eternity. And then that kind of leads us into a painting I'm sure many of us are familiar with by Goya, Saturn devouring his sun. Uh, this painting has popped up many a time in my life, and it always is so striking. I recall hearing about it in detail in art class in school, and it actually, my tattoo artist that I've been going to for years, uh, he used to have a rendition of that painting on a sleeve, and ultimately got it lasered off and got a dragon done over it. Um, and then in recent years, um, there was a reference in a movie, the Bubble, and I know that movie, like, it gets a lot of criticism. I thought it was great. I thought it was really funny, but in such a quick, like, if you blink you miss it, they made such a sophisticated reference, because Saturn devouring a sun, that was a part of a series of paintings that Goya did called the Black Paintings through 1819 to 1823 approximately. And these paintings were done when Goya fell ill, bedridden. I don't recall what the affliction was, but regardless. So he was bedridden, or homebound rather, and all of these paintings were done on the walls of his house, the black paintings. Saturn devouring a sun was one of 14. I think there were 14. um and then the Bubble, this movie was about, like, everybody being, having to bubble and, like, being trapped inside during the pandemic and, like, whatever. And so briefly, you see Pedro Pascal's character scribbling out uh, Saturn devouring his sun on the walls of his room while they're trapped in quarantine. And, like, if you sneezed, you would have, like, totally missed that. But it's such a sophisticated reference in I think a movie that got just like absolutely garbage ratings. I really enjoyed it. I know I totally have some bias because my husband is in it, but I mean, it's on Netflix. I think you should check it out. Um, it's just interesting how that painting it keeps showing up in my life, and Saturn returns are definitely a thing, and I feel like I'm in the reflection period of a particularly difficult Saturn return that lasted a really long time because it happened in conjunction with the pandemic, which is a huge bummer. But it does provide us some good fodder for what I think will be a fairly deep and abstract reading because Pisces. So I want to do a self shadow and ego reading. So the question I have listed here, or questions, are how are the disciplinarian and the dreamer expressing themselves? So we're going to check out, in the shadow and the ego, how those are showing up. And I have a secondary note of what are you afraid of? So that references the Saturn myth that we were talking about in regards to him consuming his children in fear that they were going to overthrow him. So is there something in your shadow that you're afraid of, either consciously or unconsciously? I don't know. We're going to check it out here. Let's see what's going on. Let's see. So get some cards. We'll start with the self. So think in terms of astrology placements. This would be like sun for self, your sun sign, moon, the shadow side, and then your rising, the ego and the persona. That might help lend some direction, or it might convolute things. We'll see. Because Pisces. This is a Game of Thrones tarot. Let's get the first card for the self. Ooh, okay. I'm going to put that one in motion because that's the way it fell out. That's how I like to read sideways cards. So, Nine of Cups, wish fulfillment. We've got Sam here, Samwell Tarly, in the Citadel, it looks like, well on his path to becoming a maester. So, wish fulfillment in the self. Getting closer to that authentic self, or to a wish that brings you to the authentic self, that pleases the authentic self. Is the way I've heard like sun, moon, and rising described is that like the moon placement is your emotions. The rising is what you typically express more readily when you're younger. And then as you get older, you come into your sun sign. Maybe that's after you've gone through, the difficult identity lessons that we all do. See the root of the self. What's at the root of wish fulfillment in motion? Ooh, 3. I didn't even catch that. Going with it. They're all in reverse, so blocked energy. So maybe that's why this is in motion, because these are blocked. So this can't get into the upright until we sort out the deeper root here. So the 9 of Spears, Jaime Lannister. That the... Did I say 9? Knight. Interesting. So maybe the 9 of Wands is also relevant. If I misspoke, the Wounded Warrior, which Jaime Lannister certainly was. Knight of Spears. So action of will. Is your will blocked? The Wheel of Fortune. This is very Daenerys, wanting to break the wheel. Maybe you're on the bottom or have been on the bottom of the Wheel of Fortune. Things haven't been going your way. You could be stuck in the rut of circumstances that's blocking your will to progress forward. And the 7 of Cups. So illusion. But illusion unblocked because it's reversed with these other ones. So the illusions you've had about yourself are clearing up. Maybe some self-limiting beliefs that, like in the show, when he was training with Bronn after he had lost his hand, he was very defeatist. And I mean, rightfully so. Like, he was this great fighter and then lost his dominant hand. Like, he had a lot to process with that. But Bronn was pretty much like, shut up and fight, shut up and train. It's not going to get any better by just complaining about it. He had to put in the work. So potentially you are clearing up illusions of doubt that there was something that you couldn't do, that maybe you feel like an untouchable. You feel like you're on the bottom of the wheel of the... Where's Gendry from? Flea bottom. Maybe you feel like you're from the streets, in the gutter, and whatever aspirations you have are too far for someone like you. I don't think so. Yeah, 10 of Cups. See? You'll be alright. Reading over. Let's get one on the left. Or however many are deemed appropriate. Oh, okay. I said what I said. King of Cups, Ace of Spears, and 7 of Coins. Okay. So the Master of Emotions, the Inception of Will, the Creative Fire. I think that's Oberyn Martell's spear. And Patience. So you master your emotions in the shadow. Bravo. And then you can become or start the journey to something you're passionate about. And be mindful of that passion and where that leads you, so you don't get your skull crushed in. And I would say it's taken a great deal of patience to get here and will further yet require patience. Because patience is a virtue. Meh. I don't know if the mic actually picked up my sarcasm, but I was mocking that patience is a virtue, even though it is. Let's get one over here. But that could be, I mean, if we want to really consider what happened to Oberyn Martell, gloating would be maybe a thing to avoid once that patience pays off, because that would be a mastery of your emotions, that maybe whatever seeds you've been sowing and waiting so patiently for them to grow, they're waiting for this mastery to bloom so that you don't get, hasty in the arena and squander the opportunity that you've been given. Oh my goodness. This one came out sideways. The Hierophant. Varies. Why can't I remember that? Varies? Whatever. Um, Interesting choice for the Hierophant. Because in the Rider Waite, it's the religious looking fellow that gives off Pope vibes, because I mean he's wearing the um, crown of the Pope that was abandoned in the 60s. And it's a dogmatic vibe, and also is given a traditional meaning of marriage, which does not apply to the eunuch. But he does serve an interesting function for systems. So you could be challenging your own systems of belief right now, particularly that this came out on the ego side. That's very conflict of Saturn and Neptune, of how the disciplinarian and the dreamer are fighting with one another, of what do you believe? Because he always kept his loyalties to who he believed would bring the highest good to all. As he supported Daenerys up until she started making decisions that really resembled and echoed her father. And I remember him being criticized for not like maintaining loyalty, but he did. He maintained loyalty to what he believed. So, potentially some deep reflective work in the ego of what is it that I truly believe? Like, are these illusions coming apart? I know I've had a lot of that just in the time of the pandemic, all that time to reflect, all the involuntary introspection time. That definitely was a big eye opener that just, oh man, it's so complicated. I feel like I've been in hibernation mode my whole life. And now that I'm not, I'm coming to in circumstances I'm really unhappy about, I'm unhappy with, and I just have to keep putting, one foot in front of the other to turn the wheel to achieving the life I really, really want. It's something that's authentic to me, not to this idea of a happy life that's been sold to me. I want a refund. Let's get the last card over here. Nope. A lot of big stuff going on. But I mean, what can you expect from Saturn and Pisces? Which I think will. Is that till 2026? Oh my god. I hope it's 2025. Ooh. Wow. Okay. And these are just flying out in threes. Maybe threes are important. So another group of, and this, it looked like it was in the upright and it flipped. So something that was maybe healthy has become unhealthy. Introspection to isolation. But we've got the Hermit, the Chariot, and the Priestess. So the Hermit is Bran, one of his ravens, fastest ravens in the world. And the Chariot, Strogon, and the Dothraki. Oh, and they've got scythes here too, so another Saturn reference. So Saturn in the shadow. And the Red Woman, Melisandre. Excess introspection is blocking the way forward and your intuition, potentially. Maybe there's some over intellectualizing going on and it's creating some analysis paralysis. And if you're over intellectualizing, then that doesn't leave room for the intuition to breathe, to trusting those gut uh, instincts. Hmm. So what did we say over here? Mastering emotions grants you access to a new idea that requires patience. And this would be a step towards mastering emotions, because that, I think, introspection is the first step to that. And it could very well be that you literally had to sit still, a period of pause. In runic terms, this might be this combination here, even all three. I was just going to reference the two, but felt like all three fit. But Isa, ice, it looks like a straight, like a capital I or a lowercase l. Um, but the period of pause, the winter before spring, before those pentacles can bloom, you have to go through your dormant phase in order for hope to spring eternal. Why is that phrase coming to mind? What's that from? I have to look that up later. Hope springs eternal. Why is that ringing a bell? Interesting. That pause could be necessary to unblock your intuition, to get back in touch with an obstructed intuition. So let's get the last card over here on the right, on the persona side. And it just kind of clicked for me. So persona, the rising sign, for me, I'm an Aquarius rising, so that I can see that expression in the Hierophant with systems. I'm going to take that siren as confirmation. But holding too tightly to dogmatic systems. Or even just like, doesn't even need to be that, sound that extreme. The idea of a life that will make you happy. Like trying to check all the boxes and like expecting happiness to pop out. Why isn't the formula producing the thing? Very Aquarius. Oh, with this one. Two of Swords. Arya. And it looks like after she had lost her vision, so in this Two of Swords, she has needle and a training sword. So she's making some choices here. It came out in the reverse. So you could feel like your ability to make a choice is blocked. This could come back to the self. I don't know what we were talking about over here, like when Jamie lost his hand, Braun was pretty much like, fight or F off, pretty much. Like, you have to train or you have to bail. In not so nice terms. I'm much nicer than he is. And here, she could be, choosing to fight, but in this particular state where she has not yet regained her sight, she would be very, very vulnerable. So she may be choosing to hold off and picking the training sword and going into that Isa state and living to fight another day. That may be the more prudent decision. I know that hurts over here in the ego space. That's a really really difficult thing to navigate, you know? Especially if you know you're right. Like, it'd be so easy to pick up that sword and just, I told you so, you know? But maybe laying the sword down, just at least for the moment, you don't even need to decide what you're going to do next. Just decide what you're going to do right now and just put the sword down, sheath it, take pause. Especially in that ego. That ego can get a little hot. Not that I would know anything about that. But let's see. Let's get a couple of archetypes on either side, on the shadow and the ego. See maybe what we can contemplate on, because I feel like this is contextualized a lot, but we need some stuff to contemplate on to move things forward. There's stuff in blocked and emotion, and yeah. Let's get archetype for the shadow. So this could be something that's shown up or could yet show up in your dreams, in synchronicities. Kind of like how I mentioned that Goya painting has showed up several times throughout my life. It's stuff like that that's just like random things you notice that just like, why does this keep showing up? And this could be is like the second question I had laid out. So we had talked about the conflict between the disciplinarian and the dreamer. What are we afraid of? So this could give us some insight into that, into what could be kind of stopping us in our tracks about a choice we need to make. What might be keeping us stuck in winter if we've been in that Isa phase for too long. Let's see. The Queen. And it did come out reversed. So maybe your crown is blocked. You need to listen to that Billie Eilish song. You should see me in a crown. It's a great song. A lot of red. A lot of red in this card. Um, so the root chakra could potentially be important. Some grounding exercises. Um, yeah, I might look into that a little bit more. I'm a big fan of meditation, regardless of if you buy into chakras or anything like that. Meditation is an excellent exercise to bring down the parasympathetic nervous system, or activate it, rather, bring down the um, autonomic nervous system and let the parasympathetic bring you into a better state, because a queen can rule far better while relaxed. And I mean, with the serpent, I totally get like Lilith vibes here. And it's not necessarily limited to her, but this looks like an iris and just like red eyes, a serpent. She's coming to mind for me. So, and since this is in the shadow, some repressed feminine energy, um, repressed sexual energy, and that, like, oh, what is it called? Tantric meditation. That might be something to look into, is that's very, very Lilith. I'm not gonna, tell anybody how to live their life, but root chakra, Lilith, that all is kind of connecting, and it's in the shadow. So something about yourself that you're repressing that is stopping you from realizing that true self. Because this looks like a full moon too, so that full realized self. I spent a lot of years uh, really coming to terms with, and I still don't even know what label to use between like bisexual and pansexual, because neither fit but both do for me. And like, I'd try to talk to now former friends in the past about this, and it was like I was never queer enough. And it is just like an unusual conversation. But you are who you are, and don't let the opinions of others dictate that. And that could be what's blocking the queen energy there, is maybe holding the opinions of others too close. And that can be a really difficult thing to navigate. I want to get an archetype for the one on the right. Because that at one time was somebody's opinion that I really, really valued. And it was so confusing to me that, like, I wasn't queer enough to be bisexual. It was hetero flexible was the term that was used. And I think that's kind of gross, for somebody to be trying to open up to their friend and explore what's going on and be like, you know, eh, you're not queer enough. Whatever. And I mean, I have my own opinions on things, and as long as I'm happy, who cares what it says on my Pokemon card, right? Let's see. Let's get the archetype for the ego side. I'm going with that one. The vessel. Sleep token always comes to mind. The lead singer Vessel there. And this one came out sideways, so I'm going to read that as emotion. So I see shame is like the first thing that I see when looking at this card, because she's covering herself. And there's so much like black in this card, and then like highlighted by a little bit of yellow. So the true self wants to shine through, but it's being covered. So that, I think that matches like the Hierophant coming out sideways, that you might be challenging old systems, old beliefs. Because that it might make your vessel feel unfamiliar. I know I've gone through a little bit of that too. Or like the identity work with trauma can get, especially complex trauma, like it can get really, really deep. And it kind of makes you feel a little foreign to yourself. And I would say my unsolicited advice would be just take time. It's going to take the time it's going to take. You can't uh, rush that process. It's really jarring when you happen upon and discover identity issues. I can't recommend therapy enough. And shop around as you need. You don't need to stick with the first therapist that has availability. So, but this is the Angelarium deck. I want to get one for the self, maybe a little guiding light, you know, someone to help see us through, contemplate on. And this is because this artist and author, they have a few decks. This is the Oracle of the Fallen Angel deck. Hi, kitten. What are you doing? Hello. Such beautiful art in these, though, as he's got the this one, the Oracle of Emanations, and Mausoleum of Souls. That was the first one I got by this author and artist, and I really, really like it. Oh, the vessel. Hey, how synchronous. Let's see. Get a gander at this one. The vessel. Bara Kiel? Bara Kiel. Very punk rock is the first thing that comes to mind. What are these in the background? Butterflies? They kind of look like butterflies. The lightning is really striking, though. And I don't know if this is... So this looks like a jar. And there's smoke coming off of the top of it. So very alchemical. The body paint is really cool with the red and the black. Sorry, bumped the camera arm for my phone. Really incredible art. But let's see what the book says. The vessel. What are you doing, kitten? Oh, and it's the last. Hello, welcome to the table. It's the last card in the book. Have you come to bless us with kitty blessings, with kitty energy? So, the vessel, Barakiel. Few people understood Barakiel's vision. His assistants assumed, incorrectly, that the pots that lined his quarters were full of the magic of his essence. All they knew of these strange devices was that the invisible power that brimmed from the metal caps embedded into the lids. Lightning was bound inert into a clay vessel. Barakiel could see clearly what the others only felt in passing. It filled him with excitement. Card meaning. Energy has been gathering for a while, and now may be the time to release it. There is only so long that it is worth restraining the potential inside yourself. Let others see what you've been holding back. Make a display to remember. The time is quickly approaching. Interesting. So potentially, you're putting down the training sword and picking up needle. That could be the beginning to flip those other energies as needed or as appropriate into the upright. And I'm getting very like, trust your gut, don't yield to the opinions of others. Like, because this come up a couple times in this reading, talking about like I attempted to have a conversation with that former friend, and um, hearing someone else's opinion in and of itself is not harmful if you are in a place to hear it, if it's not, if they're being kind and it's not incredibly triggering, so on and so forth. I think absorbing their opinion, hi kitten, absorbing their opinion is kind of where you get into trouble. That's certainly where I got into trouble, because I doubted myself for many, many years about, the true attraction that I felt to women. Like, yes, I've never fallen in love with a woman, but I don't fall in love with every man I've been with. Like, it's just, life is what it is. It's gone the way it has. Are you cheek marking the camera arm? Thank you. And, but that, it doesn't make me any less of who I really am just because, like, things haven't progressed to a romantic level, you know? And, you know, hi, welcome back. You know who you are. You know who you are on the inside, and there's these butterflies to show the transformation. And Arya went through an absolutely incredible transformation in this show. So maybe that's what Saturn and Pisces is trying to tell you, as it goes through its retrograde. I don't know when it stations direct. Mind that tail. I don't want you to set it on fire, please. Uh, so that could be some timing here to take into account, that whenever Saturn moves stations direct in Pisces, I mean, that's when this energy is blooming. Let's get you a little self-care, and I think that pretty well covers the message for today. Is the We talked a little bit already about runes with Isa, um, and there's plenty of astrology already present with Saturn and Pisces. So let's see. And I like to do cards from the white deck and the black deck, as the black deck is primarily songs and then a few activities and stuff. But a good friend of mine who I've kept around and whose value or opinion I do value, uh, they're not a fan of music. And I felt like I was being a little exclusionary in not having alternatives, because as shocking as it is to me as a Pisces sun, that there are people out there that don't have music on 24/7, that it's not their life like it is mine. uh I want everybody to be included, so we've got like shows, video games, and books and stuff in the white cards. I want to make sure everybody gets included. How many is that? That's way too many, so I'm just going to take this one. But Stray, the kitty video game, highly recommend. Super cute. I've played that a couple of times. Well, I'm on my second playthrough. I'm doing some achievement hunting with that, but the motion capture was incredible. I think they've beat out even dogs in animation. Uh, it's mind blowing how cat like that cat is in that game. I was so excited to see it on Xbox when it came out on that platform. I almost bought a PS5 just to be able to play that. I mean, I thought about buying a PS5, but well, that and God of War, like, but I can't really justify a purchase that large for a couple of games. But so happy that that's on Xbox now, so I could participate that in that. Super cute, super fun. One more. Late Disco, Shiny Toy Guns. That is a really good song. Um, Man, that came out a while ago. I recommend the music video. Really cool, very cyberpunky. That whole album too. I think there's another song on there I really like. It's called "You Are the One." Very enjoyable. But that would be your song for self care. So a little bit of music, a little bit of gaming, and good stuff to put your feet up to with Saturn retrograding through Pisces. I know it's uniquely rough on my birth chart, but it's a little tough on everybody, regardless. So I hope this helps. I hope this resonates. And if it doesn't, I hope the next one does. Thank you so much.